Most people searching for answers about their health are looking in the wrong place. They check their diet, they count calories, they adjust their sleep, they try different supplements. But they never look at the wall. The wall that separates the inside of your gut from the rest of your body. That wall is supposed to be a carefully controlled barrier, letting nutrients through while keeping everything else out. In millions of people, that wall has developed gaps. Microscopic gaps that allow undigested food particles, bacterial toxins, and inflammatory compounds to pass directly into the bloodstream. This is not a fringe theory. It is a recognized physiological phenomenon studied in peer-reviewed research, and the list of conditions it silently drives — fatigue, belly fat, brain fog, joint pain, food sensitivities, and metabolic dysfunction — is longer than most doctors discuss. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what is causing this breakdown, what it is doing to your metabolism and immune system, and the specific, evidence-based steps that allow the gut wall to begin repairing itself. If this is the kind of science-backed, no-fluff content you have been looking for, subscribe to Real Logic Health and hit the bell so you never miss a video. Before getting into what breaks the gut wall down and how to restore it, it is worth understanding what that wall actually is and why it matters so much to everything else happening in your body. The lining of your small intestine is made up of a single layer of epithelial cells. These cells are connected to each other by protein structures called tight junctions. Tight junctions work like gatekeepers. They open just enough to allow digested nutrients, minerals, and water to pass into the bloodstream and then close again. When tight junctions are functioning correctly, the gut lining acts as a selective filter. When those junctions begin to loosen, widen, or break down, the barrier becomes permeable in ways it was never designed to be. Researchers measure this using a marker called zonulin, a protein the body produces to regulate tight junction permeability. Elevated zonulin in the blood is now understood as a reliable signal that the gut barrier has been compromised. And when foreign compounds enter the bloodstream through those widened gaps, the immune system responds the only way it knows how, with inflammation. That inflammation does not stay in the gut. It travels. It reaches fat tissue, where it drives insulin resistance. It reaches the brain, where it disrupts neurotransmitter signaling. It reaches the liver, where it worsens metabolic function. The gut wall is not just a digestive organ. It is the front line of your immune system and one of the primary regulators of your metabolic health. The first major driver of gut permeability is a protein called gluten, specifically its interaction with a receptor in the gut called CXCR3. When gluten binds to this receptor in people with elevated gut sensitivity, which research suggests is far broader than just those with celiac disease, it triggers the release of zonulin, directly signaling tight junctions to open. Research published in the journal Gut found that gluten exposure increased intestinal permeability in patients with irritable bowel syndrome and non-celiac gluten sensitivity, even in the absence of an autoimmune response. The timing here is cumulative rather than acute. A single meal containing gluten does not collapse the gut wall, but repeated daily exposure in someone whose barrier is already under stress creates a sustained zonulin elevation that keeps tight junctions chronically loosened. This is why eliminating or significantly reducing gluten, even temporarily, is one of the first and most impactful interventions in gut barrier repair protocols. The second driver is chronic psychological and physiological stress. Most people understand that stress affects digestion, the cramping, the urgency, the nausea. What most people do not understand is the mechanism. Cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, directly increases intestinal permeability by disrupting the expression of proteins that maintain tight junction integrity. Research published in Frontiers in Immunology demonstrated that psychological stress measurably increased gut permeability within hours of exposure, with the effect mediated specifically by cortisol and the activation of mast cells in the gut lining. For anyone dealing with chronic stress, which is to say, most adults, this represents a constant, low-level assault on the gut wall that never fully resolves. Managing stress is not a lifestyle suggestion in this context. It is a biochemical requirement for gut repair. The third driver is the composition of the gut microbiome. The bacteria that live in your large intestine are not passive residents. They are active participants in maintaining gut barrier integrity. Specifically, short-chain fatty acids, particularly butyrate, produced when beneficial bacteria ferment dietary fiber, are the primary fuel source for colonocytes, the cells that line the colon. When the microbiome is disrupted by antibiotics, processed food, low fiber intake, or chronic stress, butyrate production falls. When butyrate levels fall, the colon lining becomes structurally weaker. A study published in Cell Host and Microbe found that microbiome disruption led to measurable reductions in tight junction protein expression and increased gut permeability within days, an effect that was reversed by restoring butyrate producing bacterial strains. This is why fiber and fermented foods are not peripheral additions to a gut health protocol, they are structural requirements. The fourth element is the repair compound that the gut wall uses to rebuild itself. L-glutamine is the most abundant amino acid in the body and the primary fuel source for enterocytes, the cells that line the small intestine. During periods of gut stress, demand for glutamine exceeds what the body can produce on its own. Research published in the journal Clinical Nutrition found that glutamine supplementation significantly reduced intestinal permeability in critically ill patients and in those with inflammatory bowel conditions by directly supporting tight junction protein synthesis. 4 to 5 grams of L-glutamine taken first thing in the morning, before any food, delivers it directly to the gut wall in a fasted state when absorption is highest. To begin the repair process, remove the primary triggers. First, minimize gluten, eliminate alcohol, and reduce ultra-processed seed oils for a minimum of 3 weeks, long enough to allow zonulin levels to begin normalizing. Add 30 to 40 grams of fiber daily from whole food sources: oats, flax, chia, legumes, and vegetables to restore butyrate production. Introduce 1 serving of a fermented food daily: plain kefir, yogurt, kimchi, or sauerkraut to begin rebuilding beneficial bacterial populations. Take 4 to 5 grams of L-glutamine each morning on an empty stomach. Manage cortisol, deliberately 10 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing, a consistent sleep schedule, and reduced caffeine after noon are not optional additions. They are part of the protocol. Total daily effort is under 5 minutes of active preparation. 7 days of consistent application will reduce bloating, digestive discomfort, and the post-meal fatigue that many people have normalized as unavoidable. 14 days begins to shift the inflammatory baseline joint stiffness. Skin clarity and mental sharpness are often the first things people notice. 30 days of consistent practice, combined with reasonable dietary reduction of the primary triggers, creates measurable changes in metabolic function, insulin sensitivity, and the chronic low-grade inflammation that has been silently driving fat storage and energy depletion. The mechanism is not complicated. A wall that has gaps allows things through that should not be there. Remove what is creating the gaps. Provide the materials the wall uses to rebuild. Give it time. The body's capacity for gut repair is real, it is well documented, and it is already built into your biology. It just needs the conditions to work.